You just watched me make some coffee ice, and that will be used later on in this recipe, but for now, let's get started with measuring out our oils. We're going to start with 283 grams of tallow. Zero out your scale. Zero out your scale again. Add in 283 grams of coconut oil. Then it's 283 grams of olive oil. And finally, 170 grams of castor oil. Zeroing out your scale. Pouring nice and slow towards the end to make sure you're not over pouring. We're going to be infusing these oils with coffee so we can get a really rich, deep scent of coffee throughout our whole soap bar. For this, we're going to do it very similar to when I showed you how to do infused tallows a few videos back. If you want to click here or in the description box below. In that video, I do 5 grams of coffee for every 100 grams of tallow. This whole batch is going to be very close to 1,000 grams of oils, which means that we're going to be doing 50 grams of coffee. So let's get our coffee weighed out and poured into our soap batter. I just have our fresh ground coffee here, zeroing out our scale once more. And we will just pour in 50 grams of coffee. So let's go take this to our double boiler. I have a pot of water here on the stove. We're going to turn it on high heat to bring it to a boil. And we will be placing our oils with our coffee infusion right on top. And we're going to let this steep for a few hours, smelling it occasionally just to see if it is infusing like we like it. All nicely melted down. So we're just gonna let this steep for a couple of hours. I'm gonna turn the heat down just a little bit and we'll come back and check on it in a bit. I've let my coffee mixture sit for quite some time, so it is definitely handleable. And I put a strainer into a secondary bowl. And now I'm just going to pour the oils in to strain out the majority of that coffee. It's okay if a few of the grounds are in there, but these thicker ones, we don't really want that in our soap. It's going to be a little bit too exfoliating. I'm going to let this strain out for a little bit longer, and then I'm going to return it to the double boiler to warm up a little bit while I prepare my lye mixture. I have talked about lye safety a couple of times doing my different soap recipes. However, I think it's always important to go over them. Whenever you're working with lye, you want to make sure that your arms are completely covered and that you're wearing some sort of gloves. This could be medical gloves like this, or you could use kitchen gloves, just something to make sure that you do not have any bare skin hanging out. The next thing you want to do is always wear eye protection. So I have my glasses. You could use safety glasses or sunglasses. You just need something to make sure that the lye is not going to splash back in your face and blind you. I know it sounds very intimidating, but there are a couple of different safety things that you can do to make sure that you don't have any bad things happen. I like to put my lye into one of these containers that has a lid. It needs to be heat safe, so I use Pyrex. And it needs to have a very tight fitting lid, otherwise things could spill out. We definitely do not want that. You're going to make sure you're in a well ventilated area. That would be outside, because if you inhale the lye fumes, you could definitely injure your lungs, which we do not want. I'm going to show you how we measure this out. You do need a kitchen scale for soap making. I'll put a link in the description box below to a kitchen scale. I just have a very basic model. They don't have to be expensive, but it is necessary for soap making. So let's start with the lye and the water, and then we will get outside. We'll start by putting our small container onto the scale and zeroing it out. We need 145 grams of the lye. Make sure that you are still using your gloves, arms are covered, because these lye crystals will burn you. Once you start getting close, make sure you're going nice and slow. Over pouring is not the best. Carefully tilt it back, put the lid right on, and then immediately put your snap lid on so we don't spill any of that. My coffee has been freezing all day and still it is not completely frozen. So we are gonna do the best that we can The reason you want it to be frozen is that the lye can burn the coffee and then it just doesn't smell very good while you're doing this lye mixture. Once it's all cured, there will be no smell either way, but I just like this method better. Bowl on the scale, zeroing it out, and we're gonna take our most frozen pieces, which might be these guys. Okay, so it's not perfect, but we're just gonna do our best. We need 388 grams. Definitely freeze these overnight. Do not make my mistake. Whoa, exactly 388. That's crazy. Now we're gonna take this outside along with our lye mixture. One more thing before we head outside, just in case it's super windy and you cannot hear me, make sure that there are no pets around, make sure that there's no kids around, because this is very enticing to check out and you want to keep everybody as safe as possible. Okay, so we're going to carefully open this up, pour about a third in, and keep in mind there's gonna be fumes. You can see it's melting all of my ice already. This is an exothermic reaction, meaning you're going to have some heat. Add another third. Now it could turn your coffee a weird color. That's all normal. Everything should go back to normal once it is completely saponified and cured. Keep mixing till you don't feel the grittiness anymore. And then a little bit more. Careful when you have ice in there, it could easily splash, so stir very, very carefully. Make sure you're using heat-proof things. And our last little bit. Immediately after adding the last bit, I throw the lid right back on. Okay, and once it is fully combined, we're going to take this carefully inside. It is hot. We're going to get everything set up here for the next step, because the next step goes extremely fast. So we need our bowl of oils. I'm going to need a spoon to make it pretty, coffee grounds that have been dried out, and I'm gonna put that on the very top. And then I have my lye mixture, my spatula, and I've got one of these thermometers. These are so handy because typically when you're making a cold process soap, you need your oils and your lye to be within 5 degrees of each other. Otherwise your soap doesn't always turn out. That has happened to me. It also does people, which is great, but there's a setting for radiant temperature, so you can just aim it. Unfortunately, the oil is still a little bit too hot to register, but my lye mixture is 44.9 degrees Celsius. So I'm gonna wait a couple minutes until this one, our oils cool down, and then we will mix them together and saponify them. Another thing that you do need for soap making is an immersion blender. There's no way really around it. To get it to trace, you need it to mix fast. I suppose you probably could mix it by hand, but an immersion blender makes everything so much better. So I would definitely highly recommend one. I'll put a link in the description box below as well. Of course, we will also need a mold, so we'll put that in here as well. We'll get our immersion blender all set up. I just stuck this in the freezer, so hopefully it's the right temperature now. You know, they're very close, so we can get started. Now I'm gonna do this in real time so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. So we'll stick our immersion blender into the coffee mixture, the oils, and we'll start mixing, and then we pour our lye in. Okay, and I'm just gonna take a second to scrape out the lye container. So it's starting to get a hair thicker, which is exactly what you want. This is called Trace. And I'm just gonna give it a scrape down the sides to make sure all those random coffee bits are included. You don't want any random unsaponified bits. And that is perfect. You can see it's still kind of holding its shape. Now we take our soap mold and we'll pour in our soap batter. You can see it's starting to get a little bit thick here. And then I'm just gonna scrape out the bowl. We don't wanna waste any of this beautiful batter. Oops, as I literally dump some. So we'll flatten it out just a little bit. And then in a second, we're going to make a design on it. The design that I like the most is with spoons. Okay, this needs a couple more seconds and then I will show you. It's always good to try. Okay, let's try again. It's been probably 2-3 minutes. That's better. So depending how you like your design is how close together you do your spoonfuls. And then we go the other side. Maybe do a couple more on this side, just to see if it'll hold its shape a little bit better. And then I have these coffee grounds that I wanted to add on the very top. We'll have to see if these melt in or if they hold their shape. But regardless, that is beautiful. So we are going to let this cure overnight in this container, and tomorrow we will cut it up. I had so much fun making this soap with you. I hope you learned a lot. If you have any questions, put them in the comment box below. I always love to hear from you. And if you didn't know, I have my own line of natural skincare products using tallow as the base. Right now we're having a sale, so if you've been wanting to try out some tallow skincare but have been unsure about it, definitely check out the link in the description box below. One other self-promotion is that I actually have a dry mixes ebook as well. I'm very, very excited about this. This ebook makes your life so easy when you are trying to cook from scratch or you're trying to prepare snacks for your kids. All you have to do is grab a jar of your dry mixes, follow the instructions, which are super, super simple, and you are ready to go. These recipes not only save you time, but they save you money. Dry mixes in the store are so expensive. I know you will love them. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much more than you know. Take care.